Of all the military jets, which would you say is the king of getting low and fast? Ever heard of an aircraft so tough, so fast and so low flying that it earned the nickname the brick or the flying banana? An airframe that regularly had to remove foliage from its air intakes. Hi everyone and welcome back to the Jaxom Talks channel. Today, we're climbing into the cockpit of one of the Cold War's most robust, unique, and frankly, most beautiful British jets, the low-level legend and the history of the Blackburn Buccaneer. Often dubbed the banana jet for its distinct, area-ruled fuselage, the Buccaneer's story is a perfect example of a machine designed for a highly specific, desperate mission, which then found itself adapting and surviving far longer than anyone had a right to expect. This is the story of an aircraft born on the deck of a carrier, a jet designed to fly lower, faster, and harder than almost anything else. Let's start with the impossible requirements that came out of NA 39. The Buccaneer was not born out of ambition, but out of fear, the very real fear of the Soviet threat at sea in the mid-1950s. The Admiralty, facing the rapid build-up of the Soviet Navy, particularly the new Sverdlov-class cruisers, needed a tool to counter them. These cruisers were large, heavily armored, and posed a significant threat to NATO supply lines. The Royal Navy decided that the best defense was a devastating, low-level, nuclear-armed defense. This led to the specification NA 39, officially known as Naval Attack. The plan was to carry a nuclear weapon, specifically the Redbeard tactical nuclear bomb, operated from the existing fleet of aircraft carriers. This meant tough, compact design and excellent low-speed handling. It was to achieve very high speed at sea level. The objective was to avoid radar detection by flying directly under the enemy radar visibility, meaning they had mere seconds to react. It would need to have exceptionally long range so that it could hit targets deep into the North Sea or Atlantic, withstand immense stress from sustained high-speed flight at low altitude. This meant it was constantly smashing through dense, often turbulent air, which is a brutal environment for any airframe. Most major aviation companies submitted design options. However, it was the quiet yet reliable company from Yorkshire, Blackburn Aircraft, that won the contract with their design, the B103, the technical solution that became the banana shape. The B103, which would later become the Buccaneer, had to be fast. But how do you make a subsonic jet fast at low level and ensure it handles well enough for carrier landings? The answer lay in some cutting-edge aerodynamics. Firstly, the airframe was built like a brick outhouse. It used heavy-gauge spars and skinning to cope with the low-level turbulence, making it immensely durable. Its wing sweep was modest, at about 40 degrees, balancing low-speed handling with high-speed stability. Secondly, and most distinctively, was its fuselage shape. The Buccaneer employed the principle of area rule, a new concept at the time discovered by NASA engineer Richard Whitcomb. The idea is that to reduce wave drag and make the aircraft slippery at high subsonic speeds, the cross-sectional area of the aircraft had to change smoothly as it transitioned from nose to tail. To do this, the fuselage was narrowed, or waisted, where the wings joined it, creating a distinctive curve. This curvature is precisely what gave the Buccaneer its affectionate nickname, the banana jet. Operating heavy, fast jets from small carriers required a trick to keep the landing and takeoff speeds down. Blackburn's solution was ingenious and complex. It was called Boundary Layer Control, or BLC. BLC was a jet-powered high-lift system. Hot, high-pressure air was bled from the engine compressors and ducted along the wings and stabilizers. This air was then blown over the upper surfaces of the flaps, ailerons, and tailplane through narrow slots. What this does is energize the airflow, allowing the aircraft to maintain lift at a much higher angle of attack and a much lower airspeed. This gave the Buccaneer an artificially low stall speed, making carrier landings safer and easier. But what was the cost? They required a significant amount of complex plumbing, but this was a necessary trade-off for the job. The prototype, the NA 39, first flew in April 1958. The age of the low-level maritime strike jet had begun. The first production version, the Buccaneer S1, entered service with the Fleet Air Arm in 1962, initially replacing the venerable Supermarine Scimitar. The S1 was a revolutionary aircraft, but it had one crippling flaw: its engine. Blackburn had been forced to use the de Havilland Gyron Jr. Mark 101 turbojet. This engine, whilst reasonably efficient, simply did not produce enough power for such a heavy aircraft. The Buccaneer S1 only had a maximum thrust of about 7,100 pounds per engine. This led to several serious operational restrictions, especially in the tropical heat of the Far East or Mediterranean, where air density was low. Catapult launches often required a minimum of wind over deck, and pilots had to be extremely careful with their fuel loads and external ordnance. If they lost an engine on a hot day, recovering to the carrier could be precarious. It was a marginal situation. Despite the engine woes, The S-1 introduced several defining characteristics distinct to the Buccaneer line: the internal weapons bay. To maintain its smooth aerodynamic profile for high-speed flight, the Buccaneer housed its weapons internally. This was achieved with a revolutionary rotating bomb door. The door, which formed the underside of the fuselage, would rotate 180 degrees to expose the bay for weapon release, then rotate back to seal the fuselage. This unique mechanism helped immensely with drag reduction. The air brake tail cone. This housed the radar and ECM gear. This would split horizontally and open up like a clamshell to act as a massive air brake. This was vital for rapidly shedding speed on the final approach to the carrier deck. The wings and the nose cone folded hydraulically, allowing the large jet to fit neatly below the flight deck of carriers like HMS Ark Royal and HMS Eagle. The Buccaneer S-1 proved the low-level concept. Its crews quickly learned the art of flying at 200 feet and often much less. They did this by using a combination of the basic navigation systems and the Mark I eyeball to avoid being seen. The writing was on the wall for the S-1. The aircraft was performing its role, but it lacked the safety margins and the thrust required for future weapons and missions. In 1963, the solution arrived in the form of the Rolls-Royce Spey turbofan engine. The new Buccaneer, designated the S-2, replaced the weak Gyron Juniors with two Rolls-Royce Spey Mark 101s. The Spey was a turbofan, offering a quantum leap in performance. Thrust jumped from 7,100 pounds per engine to over 11,100 pounds per engine. This almost 50% increase in power was transformative. The S-2 was not just faster and more powerful. It was safer. It could now take off from the carrier deck with a full weapons load and maximum fuel, even in hot conditions, and still have a secure single-engine safety margin. In fact, the S-2 was so powerful that the complex BLC system was often not required for takeoff or landing. That said, it was retained as it allowed for superb handling characteristics at slow speeds. The Spey also offered better fuel efficiency at cruise altitude and speed, significantly increasing the S-2's effective operational radius. The S-2 became the definitive version of the Buccaneer, entering service in 1965. The unexpected inter-service transfer now entered the time of the RAF. This is where the service life of the S-2 took a sharp, unexpected turn in the mid-1960s, thanks to the infamous cancellation of the British-backed TSR-2 project. With the cancellation of the highly advanced but highly expensive TSR-2 in 1965, the Royal Air Force was left with a gaping hole in its tactical strike and reconnaissance capabilities. After a brief dalliance with the American F-111, the government opted to acquire a stopgap aircraft. The obvious, cost-effective, and fully developed solution was the Buccaneer S-2. The first RAF Buccaneer S-2s arrived in 1969, initially filling the gap left by the outgoing English electric Canberra light bombers. These aircraft, designated S-2A, were essentially ex-FAA aircraft adapted for land operations. Later, purpose-built models, the S-2B, were delivered, optimized for air-to-surface missiles and terrain-following radar. The Buccaneer now had two primary masters, the Royal Navy, where it excelled in the maritime strike role, then the Royal Air Force, where it evolved into a long-range tactical strike fighter and reconnaissance platform. The S-2B, in RAF service, became a true multi-role asset, proving the airframe's versatility. Its heavy lift capabilities allowed it to carry a significant payload on its four underwing pylons and within the internal bay. Key ordnance and systems included pylon fuel tanks that were essential for its long-range strike role. At times, the Buccaneer often had to carry huge external fuel tanks on four of its pylons. On the external weapon stations, it initially carried free-fall bombs. Later, its most important anti-shipping weapon became the Sea Eagle anti-ship missile. The S-2B could carry 2 Sea Eagles, making it a potent fleet killer. The internal weapons bay was perfectly sized to house a sophisticated reconnaissance pod, turning the Buccaneer into an effective photo recon platform. The coming of the low-level beast and the perfecting of the down-low Creed. In the RAF, the Buccaneer squadrons, based primarily in the UK and Germany at RAF Larbruck, perfected the low-level strike role. Flying at 50 feet and over 600 miles per hour, you're not just flying an aircraft. You're threading a needle through a landscape of trees, hills, and power lines. The margin for error was zero. This commitment to the low-level environment, day and night, in all weather, defined the Buccaneer and its crews. The Buccaneer's reputation as a formidable low-level attacker wasn't just theoretical. It was clearly displayed during one of the world's most demanding military exercises, Red Flag, which is held in the Nevada desert in the United States. RAF Buccaneers have participated on multiple occasions. They were pitted against the best of the U.S. Air Force, including F-15 Eagles, F-14 Tomcats, and F-111 Aardvarks. The results were stunning. The Buccaneer crews used their specialized low-level tactics to devastating effect. They would often fly so low through the canyons and valleys that the sophisticated radar systems of the American fighters often couldn't detect them until it was too late. One famous story from Red Flag tells of a Buccaneer crew that snuck up on the main airfield, flying in undetected for a simulated attack. As they pulled up, the navigator reportedly held up a sign to the control tower that read, "You've just been bucked." They consistently achieved their mission objectives, proving that even against more modern, supersonic fighters, the old Buccaneer's unique flight profile made it a deadly opponent. Their performance at Red Flag cemented the Buccaneer's status as the world's premier low-level strike aircraft. The jet was often called the last of the gunfighters because, unlike the swing-wing Panavia Tornado that would eventually replace it, the Buccaneer required its pilot and navigator to manually work together, using their eyes and the basic terrain following radar to literally hug the ground. Operation Granby and the final use of the flying banana. The Buccaneer was designed to fight the Cold War, and for nearly 30 years, that's exactly what it did in the shadows, over cold water and flat fields. But in 1990, it finally got its chance to prove itself in a hot war, the Gulf War Part 1, Operation Granby. By the time Saddam Hussein invaded Kuwait, the Buccaneer was already earmarked for retirement. Many were in storage and the Tornado was taking over the strike mission. However, a critical need arose during Operation Granby, which was the UK designation for the Gulf War Part 1. The Tornadoes, flying medium-level conventional bombing missions, were struggling with the highly accurate laser-guided bombs, LGBs. The designated aircraft for guiding the LGBs, the Sepcat Jaguar, lacked the necessary precision and endurance. The solution dust off the mighty Buccaneers. In January 1991, 12 Buccaneers of No. 208 and 237 squadrons were hastily deployed to Muharraq, Bahrain. They were immediately nicknamed the last of the many by their crews, reflecting their age and the unexpected call to action. Their primary role was target designation. The Buccaneer S-2Bs were fitted with the PAVE spike system, a modification to carry the PAVE TAC laser designator pod on one of the underwing pylons. The typical mission saw a Buccaneer flying in tandem with a Tornado GR-1 strike fighter. The Tornado would drop its LGBs. The Buccaneer pilot, guided by the navigator's precise use of the PAVE TAC pod, would hold the laser beam steady on the target until impact. The Buccaneer proved absolutely essential. Its rugged airframe, long endurance thanks to its powerful SPA engines and large fuel capacity, and two-man crew proved perfect for the demanding, low-level designation role. They flew long, punishing missions, often in the distinctive desert pink camouflage they were quickly painted in, ensuring the success of the Tornado LGB attacks against hardened bunkers and infrastructure. They were the unsung heroes of the RAF campaign in the Gulf, allowing the Tornadoes to finally deliver their ordnance with pinpoint accuracy. It's also worth mentioning the South African Air Force SAAF, which operated 16 Buccaneers, designated the S-50. These aircraft were unique in that they retained the rocket boosters fitted for hot and high takeoffs and, crucially, served actively in the long and brutal border war conflict in Angola. The airframes were highly valued by the crews for their toughness and bomb-carrying capability in hostile territory. Back in Britain, the Buccaneer was finally retired from RAF service in 1994, replaced by the modernized Tornado GR-1, after 33 years of service, starting with a marginal design and ending as a combat veteran in the Gulf. It was time for the faithful banana jet to take its final bow. The Blackburn Buccaneer was never a sleek or fashionable, and certainly never the fastest jet in the sky, but it was tough, dependable, and uniquely qualified for the brutal world of low-level strike. It overcame an underpowered start, survived the absorption of its parent company when Blackburn was bought by Hawker Siddeley, and delivered decades of exemplary service to both the Royal Navy and the Royal Air Force. From the cold, pitching deck of a carrier in the North Sea to the dust and heat of the Arabian desert, the Buccaneer was the ultimate professional. So, the next time you see a picture of this unique-looking jet, just remember, it was more than just a piece of military hardware. It was a symbol of British ingenuity, a testament to the skill and bravery of the crews who flew them. It was a true Cold War warrior that proved its mettle from the decks of an aircraft carrier to the hot deserts of the Middle East. It was low, it was fast, and it was one of a kind. Do you have a favorite story of this amazing airframe? I'd love to know what you think of the old banana jet. Let me know in the comments below. If you have enjoyed this short journey into the history of the Buccaneer, don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more dives into military history. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.